Hello, everyone who came out tonight, and welcome everyone watching via live stream also. I just want to welcome you all here tonight, and I want to thank Orlo Stitt for bringing this program to us. He is in the front row. I am going to talk really quick because they all have a lot to say. We have some accessibility surveys on the back table. I would like you, if possible, there's a lot of paper back there, and you're getting handouts from the program, but if you would fill those out now or later and bring them back to the library or drop them in that box in the back, we would really appreciate it. We also have some program evaluation slips. If you would fill those out too, we also appreciate your feedback on our programs. So I'm going to duck off and let them keep going.
Good evening, friends. I want to thank the Fayetteville Public Library for hosting our event tonight. We really appreciate it. Before we jump into our main topic this evening, I want to start with saying something that is on a lot of people's minds: the rising cost of living. Everything seems to cost more these days: groceries, insurance, and yes, our utility bills. While there's a lot of reasons for rising costs, one of the biggest is something that perhaps we don't always talk about directly: climate change. Human-caused climate change is making everyday life more expensive. In fact, the reality is that the high cost of climate change ripples through every part of our economy. That's why tonight is so important. We're here to make sense of what's happening, what's driving these changes, and what we can do about it. And let's be honest, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the challenges of climate change. But we can't give up. And that means we have to embrace hope for the future. Hope is all about facing our challenges and then deciding to act. Hope inspires us to roll up our sleeves and go to work, learning what we can, speaking up, and taking action. Now, most of us have felt higher utility bills firsthand. And remember, behind those bills are real people. Families trying to stretch a paycheck, seniors living on fixed income, small business owners planning for an uncertain future. At the same time, we're dealing with hotter summers, stronger storms, and unpredictable weather that makes it harder for our energy systems to keep up. Tonight, we'll consider what's behind some of those rising costs, and we'll talk about practical steps, things we can do in our homes, our neighborhoods, and our community to save money and build climate resilience. Citizens Climate Lobby is a powerful avenue for hope. CCL is a nonpartisan group made up of ordinary people, Republicans, Democrats, independents, who believe that when citizens come together, democracy works. And right now, that spirit of unity is desperately needed. So as we talk about cost, energy, and policy tonight, let's keep in mind what brings us here: our shared love for our community and our shared responsibility for its future. We're here to turn hope into action. So thank you for showing up, for caring, and for believing that what we do together still matters. We've got a great lineup of speakers tonight. From the city of Fayetteville, we'll hear from Peter Nyregarden, our sustainability director, who's helping our city lead the way in innovation and long-term planning. From Fort Smith, we're honored to welcome Mayor George McGill, a strong voice for community resilience and practical leadership. We'll also hear from Riley Gamble, co-leader of the Fayetteville Citizens Climate Lobby chapter, representing the next generation of climate leaders who see this not as a partisan issue, but a human one. Joining us as well is Virginia Paschel, Senior Associate of Regulatory Affairs at Cordelia Power, who will help us understand what drives energy rates and how renewable energy fits into the picture. And rounding out our speakers are David Stitt, President and CEO of the Stitt Group and Stitt Solar, and Orlo Stitt, founder of Stitt Energy Systems, pioneers in renewable energy here in Arkansas. After all our speakers share, we'll close with a short panel discussion and Q&A so you can ask your questions directly. And so now, first up is Fayetteville's own Riley Gamble.
Hello, everybody. So there's been a renewed interest in contacting our legislators and being involved in the civil discourse, trying to interact with our congresspeople. But I don't see a lot of people knowing how to do this very effectively. So I want to give a Contact Your Legislator 101 before we begin, and also teach the CCL philosophy to a new crowd of people that may not be aware of what we're doing. So Citizens Climate Lobby is a nonprofit, bipartisan for climate change and preserving our ecology. And they have really honed in on the value of creating relationships with Congress. And it's helped us get our point across to a group of people who have historically not believed in the cause that we have been talking with them about. And yet we've still been able to forge relationships despite that and make inroads. So I want to talk about that philosophy in more detail. So I'm Riley. I've been fortunate to have been working with Citizens Climate Lobby for I've been a lobbyist for a couple years now. I've been to Washington, D.C., where they've flown me out, and I've talked to them on the Hill and in virtual meetings. I've been in about a dozen lobbying meetings now and been able to pick up a lot of their philosophy. And speaking of Washington, D.C., going there does make you feel like you are walking into the depths of Mordor in Lord of the Rings. But I have a question for you today. Is Congress evil, or are they just uninformed? And I want to ask y'all, how much does your congressperson, do they know you? Do they know who you are, what you stand for? Do they know what their constituents want or need or care about? And I'd argue that they don't know much about you at all. And to make one last Lord of the Rings reference here, it's kind of like Congress is Lord Theoden when the Fellowship met him with worm tongue, with corporate lobbying interests. Whispering vile secrets into their ears. So these are the people that meet with our representatives constantly, okay? There is not a lot of local constituents that ever make it up to Capitol Hill, that ever book appointments and meet with their congresspeople, and it's not that they're not interested, they just don't know how to do it. What CCL does is it finds people who are upset, brings them in, we write letters, and we send people to DC so that they can meet with the representatives in person. They make appointments with us when they know that we bring constituents. They want to meet their constituents. We have just organized a conduit to do so. And that can break some of the power of corporate lobbying interests that have plagued Capitol Hill. The money is still an issue, and I don't have any talking points on that. We can get back to the basics of what motivates a member of Congress. They are real people just like you and I. They're motivated by coalition. They want to operate within their party. They're motivated by their constituency if they want to get reelected, and they're motivated by their conscience if they have one. But why do I need to do some research? I just want to write an angry letter to my representative and let them know exactly how I feel. So I'm going to give you an example of a letter that one of my dear friends did send me. He CC'd me this letter, and I find some faults with it. This isn't the full letter. I'm giving him a pseudonym. I won't read this to you. Take a moment, take this in. As a lobbyist, I'm not able to be mean to my member of Congress or anyone on Capitol Hill. As a constituent, you can be as mean as you want to be, okay, when you're writing a congressperson. This is not what I'm upset about. I think that this letter is very ineffective with interfacing with a member of Congress, and if I can teach one thing, it's to do the opposite of what this letter does. So I'm going to walk through step by step what went wrong and how to improve this, so that when you write a letter to your congressperson, that you can be more effective and hear back. This is a quote from a CCLer. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be effective? Do you want to blow off steam, or do you want to actually get something done? Because writing this letter does feel pretty nice for myself, but it doesn't accomplish much. So first and foremost, this letter, this was an email. It had his first and last name in it. He did not identify himself as a constituent. He didn't give an address or a zip code or any indication that he actually lived in the district. This was rogue, and what I mean by that is that this person wrote this by themselves. They were not coordinating this with another organization or other friends or other people. And with this, it's very hard for the office to understand the depth of the problem if it's only just one person at a time. It's unclear and sarcastic. As you noted, there's a lot of sarcasm. You can't really understand exactly what point he's upset about. He's upset about a lot of things all at once. And what I would recommend is to break it up into several different emails for each talking point that you want. Further, he was trashing this representative for a past bill that they had already signed on. So there was no solution present. The bill that they were upset about can't be changed. They can't do a do-over, and they don't have any clear solution on what to do with this letter now. So let's flip the script. I'm going to show you a checklist for how to be effective when you're writing and calling your members of Congress. You're going to identify your concern, what you're writing about, be very clear. Identify yourself, provide a solution, and then organize. Do this with other people, find organizations who champion your cause, and write a letter together. Because the more people, as I'll show later, that the more people that write together have a much greater chances of getting a response from their elected officials. And I want to start with my point just to show you that there is a very complex algorithm that the offices do to sort and categorize each of their constituents' complaints. When you're identifying your concern, I need you to know that your member of Congress will never read your message. This is read by interns, and what they do is they categorize your complaint into as clean of buckets as they can differentiate it from another issue. So with my friend's example, it's hard to tell whether he was writing about the job market or the economy or taxes, or maybe social justice. I'm not really sure. It'd be very hard to differentiate between them. So if you were a member of Congress and these were let's say these are what you got for the last month of contacts for your constituents, what would you focus on? What? Infrastructure? Wrong. It's cosmic vampire invasion. One of your constituents have really got it figured out, okay? You need to listen to them. But it would be infrastructure. It's the most that you've got. You know that your constituents are engaged with writing you. That's what you're going. That's the bucket that you're going to focus on. When you're identifying yourself, I'm going to keep it very simple. Zip code is king. If you include your name and zip code, that's enough to tie you to that district. They use a lot of other different points of contact. They do watch protests, they do watch the attendance, they do watch social media, but a letter or call with the zip code indicated is so crucial. Then you have to provide a solution. With contact, you need to tell them about a bill that's coming up and whether you're in favor or against it. Very clear, cut and dry, very short. You don't have to put a lot of effort or prose into your letter. You have to say what bill you're interested in and what you're opposed to. With organizing, like this is CCL's script that will send to your email if you subscribe to CCL. They will tell you bills that will suggest to you which ones to write to, and it creates a very easy script to say which bill you're interested in. This is a future action that the congressperson can take to help you out, so that they know that you're upset, and you've provided them with a solution on how to resolve that issue. And finally, with strength in numbers, the whole reason that we do this is that we have an arm for meeting with our congresspeople one-on-one through nonprofit activist lobbyists. We can't set a meeting with our congresspeople unless they know that they have upset constituents that they want to help. If they know that they have a problem with their constituents in a particular area, they will want to talk with lobbyists. So if we can get a couple lobbyists in a meeting, backed by 30 to 100 angry letters or calls, we can really get something done. And you heard me right. A lot of districts in Arkansas only need about 30 letters, and once they get enough contact from their constituents, they will start drafting responses to every bill that comes up that hits that threshold. And they will have a very detailed response, if not consider the policy that you're advocating for. So with that, I want to get to the topic at hand, which is higher utility bills, and hand it off to Peter Niergarten. So thank you all so much.
Well, thank you very much for that. That was super informative. Again, my name is Peter Niergarten, and I'm the Environmental Director at the City of Fayetteville. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what you can expect in terms of higher utility bills if you are a SWEPCO utility customer as a result of a proposed rate increase that SWEPCO has before the Arkansas Public Service Commission right now. So before I get into the details of the rate increase, I wanted to give you just a little bit of history and background on SWEPCO and their coal plant in Benton County, which this rate increase definitely relates to. The Flint Creek coal plant was built in 1978. It has a 60-year design life, which means that it is scheduled for retirement in 2038, which is, 13 years away from now? Excuse me, that plant has a generation capacity of 528 megawatts of electricity generation, and it's actually co-owned by SWEPCO, Southwestern Electric Power Company, which is an investor-owned utility company, and it's also 50% owned by AECC, which is the Arkansas Electric Cooperatives Commission, and AECC is a generation and transmission entity that supplies electricity to the 17 rural electric distribution cooperatives across the state of Arkansas. And Ozarks Electric Cooperative and Carroll Electric Cooperative are two of those distribution cooperatives that are here in northwest Arkansas. The Flint Creek coal plant does burn coal for its generation of electricity, and that coal is mined out of the ground in northeast Wyoming in the Powder River Basin, and then sent on a train over 1,000 miles to northwest Arkansas to be burned in that coal plant. Just a little bit more history and detail on SWEPCO and their service territory. So SWEPCO provides electricity to customers in western Arkansas. You can see the sliver of counties along the western side of the state. The large cities in the SWEPCO service territory are, of course, Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, and Texarkana down in southwest Arkansas. Their service territory stretches into northwest Texas, including the Shreveport area, which is where SWEPCO's headquarters is located. And then they've also got service territory in northeast Texas, around the Longview area. The map in the middle of the screen is a blow-up of the Fayetteville area, and on that map, the area in pink, is it pink on the screen? Yeah, pink is the SWEPCO service territory. You can see it's kind of the central part of Fayetteville with some fingers that stretch out Highway 62 towards Farmington and Prairie Grove, and then another finger that goes south towards Greenland and West Fork, and then, of course, stretches north to towards Springdale. And then the Flint Creek Coal Plant is located near Gentry in Benton County, Arkansas, and that's about 24 miles to the northwest of us. The details of the proposed rate increase. This was introduced by SWEPCO in March. When a utility company goes to request a rate increase that's outside their normal annual increase that they're allowed, they have to file for what's called a rate case, and that's an official filing with the Arkansas Public Service Commission down in Little Rock. The Public Service Commission is the entity that provides regulatory authority over the monopoly utilities across the state, as well as the co-ops. So SWEPCO's filing back in March was for a 27.3% increase to residential rates. It also includes between a 20 and 40% increase on the various rate classes that commercial and municipal customers are subscribed to. The amount of that rate increase on residential customers is estimated at $30.46 per month. So that's close to $400 per year in additional electricity expenditures for the average residential customer. If you add up that increase across all of the SWEPCO customers inside just Fayetteville alone, we're looking at around $15 million of added electricity expenditures for residents, businesses, and other institutions across our city. So that's money that's leaving our local economy and being spent on electric bills. The total rate recovery request that SWEPCO has filed for is $124 million worth of system improvements. And that $124 million is, of course, chopped up and spread out among their customers, and that's where the percentage rate increases come from. So of that $124 million of increased, $31 million is for improvements at that coal plant in Benton County, that Flint Creek Coal Plant. And those improvements are necessary for the Flint Creek Coal Plant to be able to continue to operate beyond 2028. So there's some new EPA rules that come into play, and in order for SWEPCO to operate that plant from 2028 to 2038, which again is the scheduled retirement date, they needed to make $31 million worth of improvements, and now they're asking the Public Service Commission for permission to pass the cost of those improvements on to their customers. Then there's another $16 million worth of improvements that are going towards a coal plant down in northeast Texas that's being retrofitted for natural gas. The city of Fayetteville has intervened in this rate case, and by intervening, we have petitioned the Arkansas Public Service Commission to become an official party to the rate case, and so we have filed official testimony in the rate case, and that testimony has identified a number of objections that the city has with respect to the improvements that SWEPCO is asking for rate recovery on at the Flint Creek Coal Plant. Our objections include the fact that we believe that the improvements at Flint Creek are not in the best interest of the SWEPCO ratepayers, that the analysis that SWEPCO conducted in order to justify the improvements, the economic analysis, comparing alternatives, we argued that was flawed, and that the flaws associated with that analysis are due to the fact that they didn't adequately consider economic alternatives, more economic alternatives such as solar, wind, and battery storage. We also argued that transmission alternatives were not adequately modeled, and that fundamentally SWEPCO's analysis did not conduct what we're calling an apples-to-apples comparison between retiring Flint Creek early or continuing to operate Flint Creek until 2038, again, its scheduled retirement date. And the reason we're making those arguments are because coal is a more expensive fuel generation source than wind, solar, geothermal, and natural gas. The cost of renewables, the cost of clean energy over the past 10 years has come down significantly, and all of those alternatives are much more cost-effective for generating electricity than coal. And so as SWEPCO continues to invest money in the coal plant and continues to generate electricity from that coal plant, it's at the detriment of us, their ratepayers, because that electricity is more expensive to produce, and that cost ultimately has to be passed on to us, their ratepayers. There are a number of other parties that intervened in the rate case and had similar and different objections to the rate increase. The intervening parties all submitted their testimony back in August. They included comments from the Public Service Commission, who also argued that Flint Creek's analysis was incomplete. The National Audubon Society conducted an independent study of the operation of the Flint Creek coal plant over the last 5 years and found that 30% of the time the coal plant was being operated when there was less expensive power out on the open market that SWEPCO could have bought and distributed to their customers instead of operating the plant, and that cost ratepayers an additional $4.6 million over the last 4 years. The University of Arkansas and the Arkansas Advanced Energy Association, which is AAEA, argued that SWEPCO didn't consider transmission alternatives adequately, and that their system improvement plan rider should be denied, and that SWEPCO ought to place more emphasis on alternatives such as curtailment, cogeneration, and other demand management strategies. The Attorney General's office made a similar argument to ours, arguing that SWEPCO overstated their rate recovery need by $32 million. Of course, our argument is for a disallowance of the $31 million in spending on at the Flint Creek coal plant. Walmart is objecting to the return on equity and the increase in return on equity that SWEPCO is asking for as part of their improvements. And then a number of large energy consumers in western Arkansas are requesting that the rate recovery amount be reduced by $83 million. So and the schedule for that rate case is on the screen here. So all of the parties that intervened submitted our testimony back in August. SWEPCO responded to that testimony in September. And last Friday, we submitted what's called SIR rebuttal testimony, so rebuttal to SWEPCO's rebuttal. And then tomorrow, SWEPCO's SIR rebuttal, which is rebuttal to our rebuttal to their rebuttal, is due. It's very confusing. And so it's likely that we're headed towards settlement talks in the month of November. In fact, I was on the phone earlier today with one of SWEPCO's attorneys discussing potential settlement items and what those discussions may look like starting next month. Importantly, there are 2 public comment opportunities for members of the public to talk directly to Arkansas Public Service Commissioners. One is in Texarkana on December 2nd, and the second one is in Springdale on Thursday, December 4th, and that'll be at the Northwest Arkansas Community College, which is near the Arvest Ballpark. So if you're able to make it on December 4th, I'd encourage you to put that on your calendar so you can speak directly to the Arkansas Public Service Commission members, who are ultimately the folks who will make the decision on this rate case. The other opportunity to make comment, and looks like my slide got a little bit jumbled here, but if you go to the Arkansas Public Service Commission's website, which is aspc.arkansas.gov, and you click on this online services link right here. You can't see my mouse, but anyway, click on online services, then that'll take you to this screen, and then you'll want to click on public comment. After you get to the public comment portion, there's an important number that you'll need to write down, which is the docket number, and that's 25-003-U. Joanna's got her hand back there.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject that everyone here tonight can come back to this table after the program and make their comments. I have 3 different ways
Perfect. Perfect. Even easier to go see Joanna when I'm done. And once you've entered the number there, they don't make this easy, and I apologize for that. Then you're actually at the location where you can submit your public comment, name, address, so on and so forth. Notably, I checked today, and 114 people so far have submitted public comment in this rate case, and that is a huge number of folks. Every one of those comments is objecting to the rate case, 100% objection to the rate case. Normally, a rate case might see 20 people making public comments, so that of 114 have submitted comments so far. That's really, really huge, and so I'd encourage you, if you haven't done so, to help us add to that number and make your voice heard to the Arkansas Public Service Commission. And then the media is, of course, been all over this issue, and I would expect coverage to continue. We've seen print media, online media, and even some television media covering this. Again, I would expect that to continue given the size of the rate increase that's being requested. And then just in conclusion, I think, our argument and what we've been trying to say is that we really think that it is incorrect for SWEPCO to ask ratepayers to foot the bill for $31 million of improvements on an aging coal plant that's going to retire in 2038 anyway. We'd rather see that money be spent on clean energy investments that are going to generate cleaner, lower cost electricity for Arkansans. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Peter. All right, we're going to hand the microphone to David.
All right. So I'm going to hopefully help everyone. My name's David Stitt. I'm with Stitt Solar and the Stitt Group up in Rogers, and we've been doing energy efficiency, solar batteries, solar thermal, solar electric since 1978. So we feel like we've seen the highs and the lows of this world in energy, and the one thing that is certain is it's always, if something's bad, you just wait till tomorrow because it'll get good, and then you don't hold on too long when it's good because you know there's something else coming. But it's change, and it's dynamic, and it's interesting how I really believe that if this was a marathon, we have the gun has just gone off. We are just starting this race, and that may sound crazy, but there's a long runway ahead of us and a lot of change happening. So again, my conversation piece here is going to be talking about what you can do to mitigate some of the risk of rising energy costs, and I'll hit on a few things. It's in the news everywhere. 27.3%. That's what's on the table now. I believe that that's just the tip of the iceberg. We were at a conference in Las Vegas earlier this year, and several of us were at a conference earlier this week in Little Rock, and the conversation about the amount of infrastructure that has to be improved or built out is probably going to lead to other rate cases and more improvements because we have an economy that demands it. We all have more smartphones and computers and EVs and things. So we have to get creative. We have to think about how do we mitigate the risk is what this is really about. And it's not just the risk of higher energy costs, it's reliability. And it used to be when we would do solar and batteries in a building, home or office or whatever, it was always, well, I don't want my food to spoil. But what's happening now is people realize it's their communication. It is the food, but it's the communication. And it's a whole bunch of other things, transportation, that's at risk. So I should have got educated on this. I was
using the down arrow on the keyboard.
Okay, down arrow, let's try it. There you go. Not very many things in the world are predictable. Everything changes, but this is one graph that, without exception, says that since this graph was started till now, prices are going up. Don't see any change coming in that. It's almost a certainty. Interestingly, obviously I'm going to speak very much from a solar and battery perspective. Solar and batteries, not very many years ago, were the highest cost alternative energy. The panels were expensive, the batteries were expensive, there wasn't a labor force. And now solar and batteries are one of the most quickly deployable sources of energy and one of the lowest cost. And there's a whole bunch of things in here, in this graph here on the left. One of the things causing this is the growth in data centers and just our consumption of energy. We started the conversation with policy. I think policy for all of us, I love that. Like, I never thought about writing and how to write a letter to a congressman or to voice my opinion, but I think that is one of the solutions to mitigating this risk and this cost, is to communicate, and policy is going to drive this. One of the strategies right now to mitigating the cost of energy rising is solar, and then certainly a battery. If you can lock in the cost of energy on your home or business or your school for 10, 20, 30 years at a fixed rate, when the other graph shows it's going up, that's a long-term play to mitigate the risk. And that's, again, what we're talking about here. The problem right now is the policies in the state of Arkansas are such that it doesn't encourage that. It encourages us to invest in solar or batteries, but to keep the energy, not send it back across the meter. The net metering policies are such that they penalize you for sending it back across the meter. So if someone makes an investment in a battery and a solar array, and then they want to improve the ROI by sending it across the grid, which helps others that don't have solar or the greater market, it doesn't happen. The economics are unfavorable for that. So people, again, hold on to it. I think that that is something that in aggregate could be a huge benefit to lowering everyone's energy costs, as everyone contribute to the grid in a form that makes that ROI better. The other thing I will say is I think anyone who's considering solar and a battery system, we want to cover 100% of our needs from the sun. That's kind of the pinnacle. But no one ever gets to the top of Mount Everest in one jump, right? We take one little step at a time. So we're encouraging people, if you currently today have 100% of your energy coming from the grid, and you're going to be 100% subject to a 27.3% energy price increase, what if you had 3 solar panels in your house, or 5, or 10, something? Every little bit you get from an alternative source lowers your risk. And there are not currently, leases will probably come to Arkansas for solar. There are finance mechanisms that make this long-term investment more compatible with what's just paying a utility bill. So we encourage people, don't try to bite off more than you can chew, take it in little bites and pieces, and you can build your system over time, which over time mitigates that risk. And I have a crazy example, if there's any water skiers in the crowd. If you're driving the boat, you go wherever you want. If you're on the end of the ski rope, you're going where the boat wants to go. And that's the problem right now, is as a ratepayer, we just sit back and go, I guess I get to pay more because I have no choice. The other thing I will say that came up at our session, someone on a panel in Little Rock this week talked about how do we get market forces to work in cooperation with a regulated monopoly? Because that's part of the problem, and I'm going to kind of end on that. I think I got a couple more slides, but I'll kind of wrap that up here at the end. So there's no question that solar is a part of the solution. Look at the number of systems that were installed going even back to 2019. It was almost non-existent in 16, and then it took off. Well, the difference between 2024 and 25 was a change in policy. And we know that there's a gap between what we need for energy and what we have. And it's going to have that's the recipe for a higher price, supply and demand. So if we can change policy, we can keep rates down, but we also can't be so dependent only on, we have to take some ownership in that, and that's by doing things at your home or business. I am fascinated at doing things behind the meter like I talked about, because it eliminates interfacing with the utility, so you don't have the permit costs, you don't have the time delays. Generally costs a little less money, but the problem with that is it keeps all those electrons with you. It doesn't allow the excess to go to the grid and help others. So there's got to be a partnership between the grid and the private market. Virtual power plants are going to absolutely be a big deal. They're happening in California, Colorado, the East Coast. And the idea is if everyone in this room had a battery and there was a cooperative agreement, kind of like Peter said, if the utility started saying, hey, we're not going to keep trying to pump money into cleaning up an old power plant, what if they subsidized a battery for everyone in Fayetteville? And then during those times where there's peak demand, they have the right to tap into your battery and take some of that. And they pay you for it. The market all of a sudden takes control. And so it allows them to handle peak demand much better. But the customer gets the resilience, the reliability, and the benefits of time of use. We don't have time of use metering here right now, but if we did, and when it comes, it'll allow you to charge your battery at night when energy's cheap. It will allow you to discharge during the day when power's expensive. So it's, again, it's a win-win for both sides of the meter and the public and the private partnership. This is a little maybe looking down the road. I believe personally that how we think of regulated monopolies is going to change radically, and you probably recognize some of these symbols. My favorite one's upper left. You know, there was years where if you were a Razorback, you would never go leave after 4 years. You stayed there for 4 years. Now I can play for Arkansas this year, and then I can go to Texas next year. I mean, people want mobility and they want choice, and that's evident in athletics. Who would have thought 10 years ago we would actually go to another city and stay in someone else's house? Or if we go to New York City, we didn't take a yellow cab, we took this Uber, you know, where we actually paid someone to drive us around town. We have choice now in cable, what we watch, how we talk on the phone. The same thing is going to happen with utilities, where the marketplace is going to say, I want to buy energy from a utility that has a portfolio with lots of wind or solar or clean energy. Or maybe someone wants something else. Maybe they're driven by price, and maybe that's the lowest cost option. But I believe the grid is it's not going to just be the utilities supplying energy. It's going to be on both sides of the meters, and it's going to be very diverse, and it's going to be spread across the whole marketplace. And so the lower picture there is much more rolling storage, wind, solar. Utility will still be a part of it. They're not going away. The grid is too important, and it's kind of the connecting force between everything. So that's my last slide there. Do we have the right policies to grow clean energy resources in Arkansas? And yes, I don't think we do. I think that is, and it's ironic that that's where Riley started, and that is what we've got to work on.
Thank you, David. Virginia?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Virginia Pascal. I do regulatory and government affairs with Cordelio Power. We're an independent power producer. We develop wind and battery storage projects all over the U.S. and a little bit in Canada. I'm going to try to not take up too much of your time tonight, but what I want to do is give y'all a very brief and quick overview of what wind looks like in Arkansas in 2025. So Cordelio Power, just in July of this year, completed the first wind project to go online in Arkansas. And there's a lot of really new and interesting opportunities for further development in the state. If, like David said, the policy opportunities are there. The policy landscape, honestly, it started at the end of the year, or at the beginning of the year, we had the policy landscape, and 3 months in, it may have gone away. So there are a lot of really rapid changes happening in the state. So I want to just give you all a little brief intro into what that looks like. So this is a map of wind energy across the U.S. And when you think of wind projects, probably most of y'all think of like Kansas and Texas and Oklahoma. That's traditionally, if you're driving across the US, that's where you see a huge density of these projects. That's where we know fast wind is blowing, we know it's consistent, and that's what our technology has been able to capture thus far. In the past 5 years, we've seen really rapid updates in our technology. Our towers of our turbines are getting taller, our blades are getting a little bit longer, and we're needing less and less turbines for each project to generate the same amount of energy. So in the past, where we've kind of just developed in the places that are purple and red, now we're starting to be able to develop in places that are a little bit more orange and tan. And so all of a sudden, in the past 5 years, Arkansas has become a place where a lot of developers are looking to put wind projects. And I know it's kind of a scary thing to hear because a lot of people, there's a lot of fear around wind projects. You know, a lot of people don't love the aesthetics of them. You don't necessarily want them in your backyard. In Arkansas, it's not possible to build wind projects everywhere. There's really just 2 places where it's possible. It's in the Delta, in the northeast corner of the state. There's huge potential for wind projects there. And then in the Northwest, in the Ozarks, not all over the Ozarks, but on ridgelines, in some ridgelines in the Ozarks, it is possible to build wind projects, and there are some developers looking to build there. So right now, there's only 1 project online, and I want to talk really quickly about that. This is the Crossover project, which we just completed in July. It's a 135 megawatt project. It's got 32 turbines, and what's kind of interesting about it is most of the turbines are on active farmland. So I'm not sure if y'all have, we probably don't have a lot of experience with wind projects, but developers don't typically buy the land that they're building wind on. They lease it out to landowners, or they lease it out from landowners. So we have a handful of landowners in Wynne, Arkansas, most of them active farmers, and these turbines are located on soybean fields, corn fields, sweet potato fields, and they're taking up about 3/4 of an acre of land. So that includes the base of the turbine and the access roads to get to that base and to be able to reach the tower. So this is a picture from end of September, so fairly recent. And you can just see that there, within this parcel of land, there's a lot of active agriculture work going on, but the turbine is there doing its thing as well. And here's another kind of aerial view of some of our turbines. You can see the cornfield around the one on the left. And we've just been really proud about how we've interacted with the community and the support that we've had from the community on this project. We've worked really closely with a lot of the local legislators and elected officials, and they have loved having us there, and they've honestly asked for more. Like, they've asked us to build more projects in their area because of the income that it's bringing. It's super reliable income to farmers who are really struggling right now. And it's just a good use of land in an area that has traditionally been used for farmland and can continue to be used as farmland. So in April of this year, some really, really negative wind legislation was passed. Just as at the time that wind was starting to be a possibility in Arkansas and construction of these projects was beginning, we had a lot of interest in the legislature to pass some regulations against wind. But multiple bills were brought up. 7 iterations of essentially the same bill went through committee. It failed multiple times, but on the last day of session, it was kind of sneakily brought to the floor and passed by 1 vote. And so now, currently enacted in Arkansas is not technically a moratorium, but it's regulations that are so restrictive that it's really, really difficult to develop any further projects. Those regulations include really very restrictive setback requirements. So, asking for turbines to be multiple miles away from like churches and schools and houses, and things like noise level requirements that are already exceeded by ambient noise level. So it's regulations that were not necessarily passed in good faith, but were meant to prevent further development of these projects. And why should you guys care about that? Well, as Peter's slide earlier showed, this is a graph of Lazard's levelized cost of energy, which is kind of the industry standard for comparing different generation sources. And this is, mine is 2 years newer than mine is actually up to date, Peter. 2025 data showing that, and this is, I mean, the numbers on this have not really changed much in the past 10 years, other than solar and wind are getting cheaper and cheaper. But it's been true for a very long time that solar and wind are cheapest energy options available. It's just been extremely difficult to get utilities to include these in their planning processes. So when we're thinking about cheap energy, we really just have to let it be known to our legislators and our local elected officials that we know that solar and wind are the cheapest options, and we know that they're reliable, and we need them to ask our utilities to start planning for them better. And that's all I've got, so thank y'all.
So write your member of Congress, huh?
Yes, or your quorum court member, your local quorum court.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Virginia. And now, Mayor McGill.
Well, good evening to you, and thank you for being here. Arlo, thanks for the invitation to be here. We're going to talk about it from the mayor's point of view. That's some great information. We're going to talk about where the rubber hits the road. Good friend of mine, J.B. Hunt, when he was living, we would often see each other, and he would ask, George, what's going on the other side of the mountain? And I would tell him the things that were happening in and around Fort Smith. So first of all, I'm going to take a minute to tell you what's going on the other side of the mountain. And lots of things are going on. If you're not familiar with Fort Smith, and some of you are, Fort Smith is a community of about close to 100,000 people right along the Arkansas River, which is a real treasure for us, and we love her. We have an amazing medical school. Has about 800 students on campus from all across the world, right in the heart of Fort Smith, Arkansas. And of course, if you're familiar with what's been going on the other side of the mountain, we're the home of what they call the Foreign Military Sales Mission. And we are at Ebbing Air Base, responsible for training our foreign allies in the flying of the most sophisticated aircraft on the planet, and that's the F-35 fighter jet. And so right now we have a contingent from Poland training to fly their jets. So don't be surprised if you hear them up and around Fayetteville and across the region. So those are Polish jets, and they have the Polish insignias on the tail. That's going on. And so a lot of great things happening in the River Valley. And we have a branch of the University of Arkansas right in the heart of Fort Smith. That's the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith. So with that, again, it's a privilege to be with you today and talk about the issues that are certainly shaping our communities and our country, and certainly one that Fort Smith is proudly embracing, and that's clean energy. Across our city, we're taking bold steps to reduce our environmental footprint, to modernize our infrastructure, and create new economic opportunities through clean energy, innovation, and from solar installations and energy-efficient public buildings to the exploration of alternative fuels and green transportation. Fort Smith is proving that sustainability and growth can go hand in hand. Clean energy projects bring more than environmental benefits. They bring local benefits. That means new jobs for our residents, certainly savings for our taxpayers, and certainly a healthy community for our children and our grandchildren. They attract forward-thinking businesses that want to invest in our city and that are committed to progress and responsibility. Renewable energy, we reduce our dependency on outside sources and certainly strengthen our local economy. And beyond the numbers, this is about stewardship. And Fort Smith has always been a city that looks ahead while honoring our past, just as our river once powered the early growth of this community, of our community. The next generation of clean energy will power our future and responsibility and sustainability and equitability. We are building a city where innovation meets tradition, a place where clean energy supports good jobs and healthy families, thriving economy, and together we make Fort Smith not only a leader in Arkansas, but a model for how cities across the nation can grow smarter and cleaner and stronger. And again, thank you for being here. Let's talk about some of the real stuff. I was very interested in your conversation about how to connect with your congressional delegation in Washington, D.C. I've been around the political arena for a long time. Started my career during the presidency of President Bill Clinton. And I strongly believe that the key to getting the ear of your delegation is simply building a relationship with them. It's about relationship building. We just came back. I took my board of directors to Washington, D.C. to visit our CODEL, that's our congressional delegation, and we had very productive meetings. They know me because of the relationship I built with them. And one thing I believe is I always offer help before I ask for it. When I see my congressional delegation in and around Fort Smith, the first thing I say after greeting them is, how can I help you, Senator Bozeman? How can I help you, Congressman Womack? How can I help you? They remember that. So when it's time for me to make a request, they remember that we are there. So again, I encourage you to build a relationship with them. When they come to town, go where they are. Shake their hand and ask the question, how can I help you? You may not be able to do anything, but ask the question. I promise you, they will remember you for simply asking that question. Now, let me talk about some ground level stuff that's happening in Fort Smith as it relates to renewable energy and solar. And again, let me take the opportunity to thank you and your team at STIT for the work you've done on 2 major projects in Fort Smith. I'm just going to mention a few things that we're doing in that area. A large-scale solar initiative. We are partnering with a company to launch 4 solar projects to offset up to 70% of our municipal energy use. We are committed to renewable energy. Again, the benefits, they lock in long-term energy savings on the current net metering policies and reduce the carbon emissions and promotes energy independence for us. We have a robust farmers market in Fort Smith. And we're gonna put a canopy over that market space. It's gonna be driven by solar energy. It's gonna have solar panels on top. It's gonna provide the energy to take care of that, of the farmers market and other things that we need to have energy. So we're looking forward to that. And I guess one that's near and dear to me, we're gonna be putting solar panels on one of our senior citizen centers. That's where the rubber meets the road. Their typical electric bill has been running, $150, $125, $130 per month. The installation of these solar panels are going to put those energy bills at about $35 per month. That's where the rubber meets the road. We have a facility that meets the needs of those that are dealing with hunger. It's called Antioch Family and Youth Services. And they feed thousands of people every month, literally thousands every month. I'm often amazed at the number of people that are experiencing food inefficiency. Sometimes it brings tears to your eyes. You look at the automobiles that pull up to the location and you see them every make and model, from the old 78 pickup to a Mercedes-Benz. People are struggling with food. Again, thanks to this gentleman over here, we were able to install solar panels on the facility. Their utility bill, their electric bill was running close to $2,000 per month with the refrigeration and cooling systems that they're required to have and keeping their food and products, about $2,000 per month. They put the solar panels on, and now that bill has been reduced to about $500 per month. That's huge. And at a senior citizens facility and community-based facility that's dear to my heart, named after my mom, it's the Elizabeth McGill Drop-In Center. It's been around since 1961. And we have a facility there where we make sure that any community group that's doing good in the community, they do not have to pay for a rental space to have a meeting or have discussions. We provide that. The utility bill there was running close to $800 per month. With the solar panels we have on there now, it's averaging about $57 per month. That is where the rubber meets the road. And what that does, that frees those resources up where we can help another senior citizen that's struggling with a utility bill or food or whatever their needs might be. That's where the rubber meets the road. These are great numbers, great data, but these are real life stories. Now we can take care of those in need. And again, I encourage you to consider that in your city. Give it a try. And when you meet with your CODEL, your congressional delegation, offer them some kind of help, and they will remember you. They will remember you. Again, thank you for giving me an opportunity to be here. And again, it's working for us. Renewable energy is working for us. And we're looking at, we've got a project with our landfill where we hold on to that methane gas and recycle it and use it. So it has big, big meaning for us in savings and making sure our city is safe and clean. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. That's very inspiring. Okay, what we want to do now is open it up for questions or comments that you might have for our illustrious panel here. Kelly, were you going to work the microphone? Or? Okay, so if you have a question, just raise your hand. Kelly will bring the microphone over to you. If you'll just say your name, and then if it's to a specific individual, just state that, or if it's to whoever wants to address the question, state that. So we'll open that up to Q&A now.
Hello, my name is Marina. I just want, you cannot hear me? Technical problems. No energy. Change the battery. It's a battery problem.
Maybe if you yell real loud, we can hear you.
I tried. It's regarding the increase from SWEPCO.
Do we have a little more volume on this one? Can you guys hear me out there?
If they
No.
increase the prices at SWEPCO, does it mean it increases prices on other utility providers as well?
So
Testing.
can you hear me? No?
On my but
How about I'll repeat the question. The question is, does the SWEPCO rate increase affect other utilities, and are other utilities increasing their prices as well? I think the short answer is the SWEPCO increase does not directly impact any utility prices from any of the other electric utilities, although I think it it sets a trend, and it wouldn't surprise me to see other utilities also raising their rates, following suit after SWEPCO. But many water and sewer utilities use a lot of electricity in order to pump water and treat wastewater. And so electricity cost is part of what is figured into your water and sewer rates that you might have from your city. And so the increase can have an indirect effect on what you're paying on your water and sewer bill. I can say, though, that if you're a Fayetteville resident, we've invested heavily in solar at our wastewater treatment plants. And so we've offset 100% of the electricity consumption at our 2 wastewater treatment plants here in Fayetteville with some solar that we installed back in 2019. And so the rate increase is not going to affect our utility costs in the city of Fayetteville. But if you're in another city, there may be an impact.
Testing.
All right, is it working? So what do you think holds cities back from adopting more clean energy programs the way Fort Smith has? Oh, my name's Olivia.
I think it's supposed to be green, yeah. Are these working? These aren't
I think
on.
these are muted.
Our challenge was the political climate. Believe it or not, the political climate created a very toxic environment in Fort Smith. But thanks to the Climate League, boy, you guys are powerful, man. The Climate League is something else. But thanks to the Climate League, who were strong advocates for renewable energy, solar, they came out in large numbers to our board of directors meeting. And when these ordinances were put on the table, they spoke out, spoke eloquently and forcefully about the value of renewable energy and the impact it would particularly have on those senior citizens, low-income senior citizens living in that senior citizen center. So that was our biggest challenge. And the votes were very close on whether or not we should receive the grants or not. Strange as it sounds, people fought against receiving federal dollars to install solar or to use solar. But thankfully, the Climate League, I have to give them credit. My friend Joe Ellison, there in Fort Smith, led that effort. And we were able to pass the ordinances that would allow us to take advantage of those grant opportunities. And it's really, really making a big difference, particularly for our senior citizens.
And I would just add that cities face a lot of competing priorities. There's a lot of things that cities are responsible for taking care of in our normal day-to-day operations. And but at the local level, we're generally pretty responsive to citizens and citizen interest. And so, Mayor McGill talked about the Climate League in Fort Smith. I think, if you've got advocates in your community, go to your city council, talk to your elected officials, tell them that something you want is greater investment in clean energy. And generally, at the local level, elected officials tend to be pretty responsive when they're hearing directly from their constituents.
But also, to be clear, these utilities, like SWEPCO is trying to keep this coal plant online. That's totally separate from what the city of Fayetteville has authority over. So, Peter has been showing up to meetings with SWEPCO for quite a while now, asking them to consider replacing this coal plant, which will retire in the next, 13 years? Is that the number now?
That's the scheduled date.
The scheduled date for retirement is the next 13 years, which means that they need to start thinking of solutions for what to replace it now. And he's been showing up at those meetings on behalf of Fayetteville to ask them to plan for, wind or solar or battery or something, anything cheaper than coal. But it's very difficult to get a utility to change what they've been doing for a very long time, and to honestly, the primary issue is that utilities don't make as much money off of solar and wind as they do coal plants, because their rate of return is based off of what they're paying for each month. So the more that they invest in something, or the more that they pay for, fuel is a big example of that. If they're paying for coal, or if they're paying for gas, they get a steady rate of return on that. That is decided by the Arkansas Public Service Commission. For solar and wind, it's free, and so there's not a number for them to get a rate of return on. So they're much less likely to want to include this in their, 5-year plans, 20-year plans, because they're not making the same amount of money off of it as they would a very expensive plant.
Are we on? Hey, great. My name is Michelle Hossel. I know a lot of you in this room. And sometimes I think as citizens, it's hard for us to talk about solar energy because we don't feel like we have the facts and the knowledge. So I'm going to tout a book, okay? Bill McKibben just wrote his newest book called Here Comes the Sun. He stole the title from the Beatles. This is one of the most incredible books I have read in the last 10 years about renewable energy. If you want to know what's happening in the rest of the world, because what they're saying is true, there's policy at the local, state, and federal level that blocks what we want to see happen with regard to climate, protecting the earth, right, and our ability to live here. Policy at all those levels. So we have to interact with all those levels. But what's happening in other states, and they've alluded to it, Arkansas is different, right? What's happening in California, what's happening in Maryland, and in countries around the world is very, very different. So if you want to feel more comfortable talking to your delegation, talking to WALMAC or Bozeman, or to the Arkansas Public Service Commission, to the legislature in Arkansas to say, hey, we don't like that bill that they just passed last April. That was not a good bill for Arkansans and for the future. Read this book. So there's going to be a group read at St. Paul's Episcopal Church, 6 Sundays. It's going to take us 6 hours. We'll meet 1 hour each week for 6 Sundays in a row, or 6 Sundays. And you can learn how to talk about these things and learn what's going on in the rest of the world. It's the most inspirational, hopeful, empowering book I've read in a long time.
I will ask a question. So, what are some of the climate impacts with AI data centers that are cropping up around the country, and how will that affect my utility bills?
I might just. I think we're all trying to figure that out. I think there's a lot of conversation about big investments, and there's a lot of, it's not something most of the country's ever dealt with before. And there's concerns about water and noise. It's not just an Arkansas thing. I heard a statistic that, don't quote me on this, but I think it's pretty close. There are 5,000 data centers in the world today. And in the future, there will need to be 11,000 in the U.S. To put that in perspective, they're going to be all over, and the amount of energy they take is incredible. So, I think everyone's trying to figure it out. I think there are people that think it's going to be just a boom to their local economy, and that probably will bring a lot of revenue. It'll be, if they're powered by clean energy, wind and solar, probably will be local energy produced locally, and there'll be some jobs. I think we're all probably skeptical, and we hope for the best, but I don't think it's going to all come out for a few years. This is my opinion.
I was just talking to Wally Nixon at the Arkansas Public Service Commission on the weekend. And the new data center that's being built in West Memphis will be powered by solar with battery backup. So that is a good sign. If we could get, even if we need 11,000 of them, and if this is what Bill McKibben contends in his book, they could all be powered by solar with battery backup.
Yeah, and these data centers are what's driving this I mean, they're the primary driver of the energy increases across the U.S. So when we're talking about not having enough power for everyone, the primary reason for that is these huge data centers. And what's important to think about is who's paying for those, and if it's the ratepayers or if it's the actual facility itself. And in a lot of cases, and I'm not totally sure the exact policy in Arkansas, but in a lot of cases, it's the ratepayers who are paying for those new generation plants.
I might, just one other quick comment, sort of piggybacking this. I think sometimes we make things too complicated, and I don't pretend to be the expert on how to run a data center with the wind or solar and batteries like that. So I take it to maybe a level that I can relate to. Like Peter said in one of his slides, we're mining coal 1,000 miles away and bringing it here to burn it. And why is it this cooperation that we need to foster between the utilities and I'd say everyone's got a meter. Like, we can all talk about great, huge data centers and these big things but everyone's got a meter somewhere. Maybe it's your home, your business, your hospital, whatever. You pay a bill. And so we're all concerned about what's happening with our meter. Well, if I look at my house and I take it down to this micro level, if I take care of most of my needs, and you take care of most of your needs, and the community center, the school, the city offices, individually, we just start pulling all this load off the grid, and that provides capacity. And again, we'll take that full circle back to policy. You've got to have a conversation and a policy that's ripe and allows people to do that, because the solutions are here. It's not a question of technology. It's not a question of will. It's policy that will open those doors.
Yeah, and I'll add to that on the policy front. I don't think there has been massive changes in policy in Arkansas over the past two legislative sessions. First, making restrictions on solar and solar development and returns on investments in solar, and this last legislative session, as Virginia alluded to, with respect to wind. I don't believe that it's a coincidence that we are seeing electricity rates rising so significantly now after the enactment of two forms of really bad policy by our Arkansas legislature.
I'm loud. I'll just put it out there. But this is for Sterling. So on the CCL, I'm sure that you guys are all over this Act 945 of 2025. Is there any way to change that? Is there any movement in trying to change the results of this act, or to amend it, or to do something going forward, or how does that work?
There's not a lot of going back with
Going forward.
with bills. The policy, the strategy with lobbying with CCL is usually to wait for favorable bills to come on the floor and then push your members of Congress to vote for them. We will encourage some members that work with us to write bills that are in favor or to reverse, and then push people into that camp to vote on it. But as a policy with our organization, we only pick bills that have a chance of bipartisan support, because we try to foster goodwill with both sides of the aisle. So we kind of wait for those opportunities for good bills to come up, notify our members of Congress, and then go from there.
And if I could add to that, we build our success, just little steps at a time. Twice a year, Citizens Climate Lobby does what we call lobby days. This summer, there were over 800 CCL volunteers that met with their members of Congress from all over the country, had well over 400 meetings. The second round of lobby meetings is coming up next month, which we do virtually. Right now, it appears that our focus is going to be on the Fix Our Forests Act, which is just packed with a lot of good things to reduce wildfires, help us better manage our forests, and then permitting reform, which is is a huge problem for all forms of energy. Typical waiting time to get a permit for a new energy facility coming online is 4 years. So we're trying to speed that up.
We have a question back.
Okay, I'm gonna hop in here. Hi, I'm Zachary Greider, and thank you all for holding this panel. I was gonna ask real quick, I'm sure all of you, since you're in positions of power with respect to the renewable energy movement, that you've come across some people who don't completely agree with what you're trying to do or what you try to support. And I know you're not gonna change everybody's minds, because it's really hard to change somebody's mind when their wallet depends on them believing what they believe. However, in cases you have changed someone's mind, especially, I guess, with respect to Peter or David or Virginia most often, in your line of work, is there anything besides the dollar amount that people looked at that you successfully changed their mind? Or an instance like that, like, was it a lack of information? Was it just the money? Was it something else? I'd like to hear about that.
Money definitely talks, and where we're able to make the economic argument for an investment in clean energy, that's what we're definitely going to lead with. But one example that does come to mind where we had success beyond just the dollars and cents argument was, if you remember, I think it was February of either 2021 or 2022, when they had the blackouts across Texas due to the winter storm. We had rolling blackouts here, not as severe as they had in Texas. Our solar array, the solar arrays that we have at our two wastewater treatment plants, were covered in about 8 inches of snow at the time, so unable to produce. Ozarks Electric sent their linemen out to broom the snow off of the solar panels so that they could produce electricity during a time of significant need of electricity, and they were able to, in part, by doing that, prevent rolling blackouts in the Ozarks electric territory, while there were a few blackouts in the SWEPCO territory. So that's one example I can think of that comes to mind.
I would say economic arguments are so easy to make because they're so clear, and that's definitely what elected officials, in my experience, have are most receptive to. I mean, there are many Republican legislators who are willing to support renewable energy in the state because they see the benefits that it can bring to their community. So just being able to make a clear argument, I mean, it's easy. Like, all of the data points are there. They've been there for decades. So just making that clear is really important. And Winter Storm Uri is, that's another really huge example of people's bills were insane after Winter Storm Uri, and that was because the gas plants froze. Is it MISO or SPP? I can't remember. What is it?
It's SPP that we're in Western Arkansas, but it was ERCOT in Texas.
Right.
That was the big problem.
But essentially, it was wind that kept people with power during Winter Storm Uri. The gas plants froze, and the wind kept blowing. So I saved a lot of lives, and the bills weren't cheap because the multiple gas plants were offline. So that's just a really interesting story to tell.
I might, kind of talking about changing people's opinions. Personally, it was 2 sessions ago when this net metering law changed. There were a multitude of things going on, and in hindsight's 2020, obviously. One of the challenges, and someone alluded to this, certainly Mayor McGill talked about relationships. We sat there in Little Rock and listened to testimony and listened to legislators hearing the testimony. And we talk around our office about what we call the curse of knowledge. We all have this information that we just have to spew because we've learned it, and it's good for us in industry, but it doesn't communicate well with others. We're not, and I feel like I sat there and watched some of those hearings and some of the conversations, and I remember like yesterday where someone, I don't remember who it was, said, "You mean the utilities?" So a little bit of background: net metering used to be if you buy it one rate, you sell at one rate, so it was truly one for one. Now it's you buy at one rate and you sell at avoided cost, which is worse than wholesale. And so it's really detrimental, and they were trying to figure this out, and someone said in very plain terms, do you mean the utilities can buy on the wholesale markets for less, but if they buy from someone with solar, they pay more? It's a very elementary argument, and he said that doesn't seem right, that the utilities should have to pay more than they otherwise should. It came down to economics. But it was a complicated story that was being told, and no one can fully understand and grasp all the moving parts of that in a hearing. And so I think somehow getting ahead of it, you know, kind of paving the way and getting in conversation before it's, and talking on people's level. Maybe some person it is money, maybe it's resilience, maybe it's I don't want my phone to go down, I don't want the news, whatever it is. I think everyone's got a hot button, and by asking certain questions and probing a little bit, you'll get that information, and then you can connect with people. And then you can help. How can I help you? I can help you be, you know, if I'm telling you, you need this and you don't want that, we're ships passing in the night. I think it's communication.
Hi, I'm Andy Morrison. I'm hopeful that eventually the new negative regulatory environment that we're in will be rolled back at some point. But while we're here and in the midst of it, what do you all see as the most likely area of renewables that can still be worked on and in which we can still have advances?
I think all of the above. I mean, there's a lot of very scary storytelling at the federal level about tax incentives being rolled back, and a lot of support that renewables have had in the past being rolled back. But these are, for the most part, a lot of these are very large corporations, and they've kind of prepared for the future. So development of solar and wind and battery storage is going to continue regardless of federal policy. It's just going to happen maybe a little bit more slowly. I think apart from the federal policy, we're seeing a lot more local moratoriums being acted, which have a honestly much more impactful. They just impact our project development a lot more, because often the folks who are making those moratoriums or restrictions don't have a lot of experience in making energy policy, so they're just making regulations that are really impossible to comply with. So having relationships with quorum court members and county judges, and being a person that your county judge knows, can be super helpful to getting some of these renewables projects developed that are already a lot of the way through the development process.
Hey.
One more question. Joanna?
I don't have a question. I have an encouragement. If any of you have not made your comments to the Arkansas Public Service Commission to let them know that you don't want this 27.3% rate increase on your bill, which averages out to, of course, it's going to vary a lot from household to household, but it's like $30 a month more. And so 27% is a lot. I mean, that's going to significantly impact all of our budgets. If you haven't made your comments yet, I've got some really easy ways to do that back here. It won't even take very long. If you want to go the long route, I've got that. If you want to go the short route, I have it. But please just stop by and make your comments before you leave tonight, so that APSC knows that we don't want this.
Thank you, Joanne. I'm going to ask Orlo now to...
One last question?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Luis Comba. So I just have a question. It's more or less technical about the solar and the wind. In general, is it possible to say which one is more efficient than the other, or that comparison it's not possible to do?
I think it's a fair question. I think it depends on where you are. Interesting, solar and wind they're complementary. If you think about weather patterns, when a front comes through, there's a lot of wind, and on the backside of that, there's a lot of sun. So there's a complementary relationship between solar and wind, but you know, certainly solar is better in some parts of the country and wind's better in others, and there's some places both good. So it's very dependent
sun shines during the day and the wind blows at night. So having both of them on your system can really stabilize your grid. So they're both great.
Can you hear me? I think this has been a great discussion. And I thank all of you for being here and for your curiosity, because I think curiosity is what will lead to solutions. First of all, our next, there's a link at the bottom of your front page on your handout where every one of you, including your friends and neighbors, can click on this book. Mary, my wife, who's here, we have in effect donated the content of this book to society. Our competition, our other installers of solar and our other people who build homes can copy this. And if you follow the 18 principles there, they will have a net zero house. And if they want a few more solar panels, they can have a net zero plus life that includes charging your car and your lawnmower and maybe your golf cart. So read that and go through that. The next thing is on the last page, the back of the second page is a list of 50 ideas that will save you energy. You may not do them all. You may do the small ones that lead to bigger ones. We started our first endeavor with Passage Solar in 1972. I was only 6 years old then. Anyway, don't laugh. Anyway, and we built a Passage Solar home, and in 1973, our house was on national television, both in the US, Canada, saying there are solutions. I heard Sinclair say we have to find the hope. Well, when I think about the hope and the things that we've heard tonight, I put together the concept that solar and wind are the least expensive sources of energy. Not necessarily the most consumed right now, but in the future, it will be the most, because the economics talk, the economics result in people buying that option, and all the politics and the votes in Congress and the Senate and whatever is going to be considered into the economics. But not only that, it is the fastest source that you can get. The IT stations or data banks or data centers will have to have it soon if it continues to operate at the speed that it is. And we can put up solar in a field. I heard a little saying that if you plant corn, to get the corn for an acre of land, you can get one amount, but 14 times that same amount of energy will come if you plant solar panels on that same 1 acre. 14 times. And it can be done before next year, even without federal tax. The transition that we're looking at is lower cost for everything. The urgent need is some way to finance it. Like David said, we're looking into leasing. We're looking into other banks where they get voluntary money that comes from wealthy people that want clean energy. So, and not only is the fastest and the least energy, but wonderfully, for the sake of future generations, it's the cleanest. Both of them are zero carbon, and we don't have that halo around the whole globe, the whole global society. not just here in Rogers, Arkansas, but in the North Pole and the South Pole, and Ukraine and Ukrainian society, everywhere. It's reducing that tendency for that carbon dioxide that doesn't want to decompose. It's going to be up there for 100 years. Our people in our country are so divided. We know that. I mean, it is just, I am confident that CCL's approach will result in a way to talk and work together across party lines. It's in our mutual interest. It's in the interest, again, of future generations. So regarding energy use, energy generation, and our climate challenges, we have the economics working for us. Now for the immediate future, the least expensive is the fastest way, and it's the cleanest way, and I'm summarizing here. The challenges are for not only our generation, people here, but for our children and their children. Now, like he said, like Nike says, do you know what Nike's slogan is? How many people know what Nike's slogan is? Just do it. Think about every one of those 50 ideas and look at my book, not just as a means of building holistically green homes or retrofitting your home, but as a idea book of things you can do at home, whether it's window shades that you can make your windows with close to the same R factor as a wall, and you can raise and lower your sails, nighttime, daytime, cloudy days. Again, thank you for attending. If you would please, if you're so interested, fill out a visitor's card. We're not going to share it with anybody. It's for CCL and what we can do. But also put your suggestions and your questions at the bottom. Fill it out and take a few minutes. We have to be out of this building at 8 o'clock. We'd like to start exiting at about 10 minutes from now, 7 minutes from now. We're on good time. Kelly's been good. She set this all up. How wonderful, and thank you for the library. So go home and just do it. And yeah, and fill out Joanna's card. Yes, you still have time. Thank you for coming.